Hi everyone. Thanks for the great intro. My name is Evan. I'm with Vessel Packaging. Big thanks to Hops Connect for sponsoring the seminar track here and Tops Hops for the last presentation. That was awesome. Seeing lots coming through in the chat. So I'll introduce Vessel real quick first. So we're the original mobile canning and can supplier for Canada. Vessel was rebranded to Vessel about a year ago, formerly West Coast Canning and Sessions Craft Canning, and we specialize in anything to do with aluminum beverage cans, from sourcing to decorating to filling. Bit about me. I've been in the beer industry for about 8-9 years now. I started with Molson back in about 2013, and I was with Parallel 49 until about a couple years ago when I moved over to Vessel. My background is in brewing and packaging, but I've been selling cans for the last 2 years. With me today are Maddie Human formerly of West Coast Canning and Vessel, now with Summit Print. They're one of our fantastic label partners, and Jack Finn of Skeleton Crew. Skeleton Crew is a design firm who actually helped Vessel with the West Coast Canning to Vessel rebrand, and has done some fantastic work on the label design front for some of our customers. Saw some talk about Jeopardy through the chat. I did participate and lose on an episode of Jeopardy. My geography and history skills definitely left something to desire. I did manage to take the crown in the recent opening quiz. Unfortunately, I won't be able to defend the title tomorrow. It falls right at my son's hockey, but I'll definitely happy to defend the crown another time. Yeah, I can't bear the thought of losing to Ken, so I'm just gonna duck out. So I'm gonna share my screen. I have a brief presentation, talk about the different types of can decoration that Vessel offers and that you can get commercially. I'll turn it over to Matt, and Matt will talk about different options for types of labels, embellishments on labels. And then Jack will talk about how to design your labels to make them stand out on the shelf, and some current trends as well. So Matt or Jack, can I just get a thumbs up that you can see my screen okay?
Roger.
Oh, I just realized I started my show on the last slide. So after I go through my presentation, Matt will go through his and Jack will go through his, and then we'll open it up for questions after the fact. I'm not going to be, apologies to anybody who was at my MBAA presentation or the OCBC presentation before that. This is some very similar material. I'm not going to be talking a lot about the can supply situation in this presentation. It's all going to be about the types of can decorations you may or may not be able to get right now. But in the question and answer period, if you have any questions specific to that, I'm happy to answer that. So as I mentioned, Vessel, we are North America's one-stop shop for cans and canning. We have warehouses and production facilities across Canada where we store brite cans. We do application of shrink sleeves and pressure-sensitive labels. And in most of Canada, we do offer mobile canning. So there are three main types of ways to decorate your cans. I'll start with the most cost-effective but least flexible option, and that is a direct printed can. So with direct printed cans, the cans are actually printed on at the time of production. So in the can forming process, cans are basically made from a aluminum coil, stamped out, and then formed into can bodies. Before they are necked, they can be put through a decorator. and it's a printer that will apply up to 6 different colors of inks to the cans. And then after that, the cans are necked and repalletized and shipped out. Printed cans are very cost effective because you are buying full truckloads of cans at a time, and you're not paying anything extra for the decoration. There are some setup fees involved in the artwork, but you don't have to pay for a label or the application of a label. Um, the problems with this come with that there's very little flexibility here. The current situation is very difficult to get new orders of printed cans in. Vessel and any other can distributor is going to have a fixed allotment from the manufacturers. And for the most part, that is sold and promised to customers who've already ordered those cans and basically pre-bought the volume. There are opportunities here and there for volume, but for the most part, it's going to be relatively difficult. Printed cans are also not really a great option for breweries that do smaller runs and like to switch up your brands from time to time. Minimum quantity on a printed can is a truckload of that specific label, which works out to about 700 hectoliters. So if you cannot produce 700 hectoliters of a given design and size in can in a relatively short period of time, up to about 6 months, it's probably not worth it to go with printed cans. Lots of folks will ask about why they have to go through a distributor such as Vessel or Cask or whoever else is distributing printed cans as opposed to direct to the manufacturers. And there are a couple advantages to going through a distributor, but the main thing is that the can manufacturers do not work with craft customers directly. We have had a number of breweries that Crown are the manufacturer that we work with has asked us to take on as customers, because they have taken the approach that they really only want to deal with the largest of the can purchasers, the Cokes and Pepsis, Molson, Labatt. It's really tough to get any sort of commitment from Crown directly for any volume below about 50 million cans a year. So almost every craft brewery is going to be under that, and that's why you'd be working with a distributor. We also buy way more than 50 million cans a year, so we have the purchasing power to give much better pricing, believe it or not, than what you would get from Crown directly. And working with a distributor, you can also get help with the artwork side of things. Printed can artwork is quite complex. It's a much different printing technology than any other print process. And the if you're not used to working with printed cans, there's a bit of a learning curve there. Ordering through Crown is a lot different than ordering through Vessel or a distributor, and also customer service, because you would represent much bigger part of a distributor's portfolio than the can manufacturer's portfolio. The service you're gonna get is gonna be much better through distributor than direct from the manufacturer. Some of the considerations, the lead time can be quite long. I would not tell you I could get you a printed can within 4 months of artwork submission. It can be done, but it's very tight and doable. The artwork process is longer than any other label design, because printed can inks are not the same as inks that would print on a shrink sleeve or label. There isn't a one-to-one mapping between can inks and Pantone colors. So when Crown picks inks, you either send them materials for color matching or pick Pantone colors, and then they will try to pick a can ink that matches that the closest. Because there's such a big investment in a truckload of cans, they need to do color proofing on that. So they will actually pilot the can before you get a production run of the can. So with all the separations and engravings and piloting, it takes up to, I'd say, minimum of 6 to 8 weeks. If there's back and forth in the process, it can be much longer. 6 to 8 weeks on printing is actually optimistic at this point. It's close to a 2 to 3 month lead time on printed can orders. Talked a little bit about the minimum quantities. The artwork setup cost through Crown is typically $2,500 to $3,500 US. Revisions are a lot cheaper than that, but there is that initial cost to set up a SKU. I think our friends on the printing side can talk a little bit more about the capabilities that sleeves and labels have, but printed cans are much more limited. You can't get the same resolution that you can on a sleeve or a label. Um, it's a similar to a flexographic process where there are print plates that get dipped in ink and deliver that ink to a can, but you can't really print over different colors like you can on other substrates. Um, when ordering a truckload of printed cans, you need to figure out where to store those cans, 25 pallets, 10 feet high. We do have options for helping facilitate that storage, but there's definitely a cost to that. So really important that if you are ordering printed cans, it's a SKU that you can go through in, ideally 6 months up to about 12 months. The next option that you have for can decoration is shrink sleeving. I call this the balanced option because it's much more flexible, but also much higher cost than printed cans. Whereas a printed can, you're looking at about 15 cents Canadian for a 355 ml can. A shrink sleeve can is going to be in the 20 to 30 cent range all in, because you're buying smaller quantities of cans, you're paying for the application of a shrink sleeve, and you're also paying for the shrink sleeve itself. That said, you're paying for flexibility. You don't have to buy a truckload of cans at a time. You can buy as much or as little as you want. You can also buy as much or as little of the shrink sleeves themselves as you want, because your applicators, such as Vessel or other sleeve applicators, will typically store these sleeves for you. So you own the sleeves, you purchase them from a printer, and then they're stored on your behalf until you're ready to get the cans. So there's going to be a cost savings to buying a larger quantity of sleeves up front without having to buy a full truckload of cans up front, if that makes sense. Um, Working with Vessel or any other can supplier and applicator, we have partnerships with printers such as Summit that we know and trust, and we can make recommendations in terms of who is good to work with, who's less good to work with on the printing side, and really who's going to be most important is who's going to be the most appropriate partner for you on the printing side. Lead times on sleeve cans will be much shorter than printed cans. They really depend on the printing side and how long it takes to set up that artwork and then get sleeves printed. Some printers, such as Summit, who print digitally, can really turn stuff around within 2 weeks from artwork submission, and then you might be waiting a little bit for us to apply the sleeves. Some other printers, when you're looking at larger quantities, print flexo, and Matt will talk a little bit about the differences there, might be slightly longer lead times. But typically, as opposed to 3 to 4 months from artwork submission to getting cans on a printed can, you can have a sleeved can in hand, within 6 weeks on the outside, typically could be even quicker than that. Artwork setup costs are much lower. With digital print, it's going to be minimal to none. With flexo print, you may be paying for print plates, but typically it'll be well under $1,000 per design, as opposed to 3 times that for printed cans. The print capability is going to be much better on a shrink sleeve than a printed can. Even, whether it's digital or flexo printed, the resolution is going to be much higher. The number of colors you can get are much greater. And there's also much better capability in terms of different finishes, embellishments. And I'll save that for Matt as well. In terms of storage and shelf life, Vessel buys millions of blank cans. We turn over our inventory fairly quickly, so you don't need to worry about having a can that's sitting for months and months. What you do need to worry about is the sleeves themselves. Shrink sleeves typically have about a 6-month shelf life from when they're produced to when they're applied. So you don't want to be purchasing more than about a 6-month inventory, and even that might be a little much. When they're sitting for too long flat, you can get a permanent crease in the sleeve, and that can lead to a less than optimal look when they're applied to the can. The last option for decoration that we offer is pressure sensitive labeling. This is going to be the most flexible, but also the most expensive option. Pressure sensitive labels tend to be more expensive than shrink sleeves because they're typically produced at lower quantities. They're also more expensive in terms of substrate, the fact that there's an adhesive involved and also a backing involved. So you're buying a lot more material than you are with a shrink sleeve. PSLs are quite flexible in the sense that you can either get them applied before filling by an applicator, or you can label them yourselves after you fill them. If you're running your own can line or even using a mobile canner, you can have them fill brite cans and then apply them yourselves. Again, quite a bit more expensive than the average sleeved can. At the very low end, it'll be around the high end of a sleeved can, and the high end it can be quite a bit more expensive. But that said, it's every can decoration option is going to be a balance between cost and flexibility. The advantage to labeling cans is you don't need a lot of equipment to do that, such as a shrink sleeve applicator and steam tunnel. So you can decide what you're going to fill and decorate on the fly if you purchase labels yourself. In terms of ordering cans, the first step is always the artwork and the decoration. Someone like Vessel or Printer can give you the design guidelines and templates for whatever sort of decoration you're doing. Understanding the process, the timelines on the artwork side and also the ordering side. The best job you can do on your end to bring your costs down as much as possible is forecasting, understanding how your sales are going to drive your can demand. The better you are at forecasting, the less you have to invest in stock and contingency. So really important to have that under wraps because that will help you keep your packaging costs as low as possible. Cans are very difficult to handle. We definitely recommend they be moved as few times as possible. So having them shipped in full truckloads is obviously ideal. Second best is when we receive full truckloads and ship out or bring them for mobile canning directly to you. When you're getting decorated cans, we can be flexible in terms of pallet heights, in terms of how they're shipped. So it's really easy to make sure that you're getting the cans in a way that you want them. When printed cans or full truckloads of blank cans shipped from the manufacturer, much less flexibility there. It's typically full height pallets, 108 to 109 inches high, which can be tough to manage. I'll turn it over to Matt now to talk about different options for labels and label embellishments. And I will stop sharing my screen.
Great. Thanks, Evan. Appreciate you having me today. And obviously thanks to the Guild and the sponsors, everyone else and behind the scenes who's helping us out to put on this virtual conference this week. So I'm just sharing my screen here. And if Ev, can you let me know if you see that there? Awesome. Yeah, so thanks again for having me. Just want to go run through quickly some can decoration options here in 2021. As we heard this morning from Ian Tostenson, packaged product and to-go and takeout options are here to stay in BC. It's a great time to consider your packaging design and to define your goals for it. So by building your labels with intentional choices, sorry. Oh, sorry, I just heard I got to swap some screens around.
Sorry, Matt, I gave you the thumbs up too quickly. Yeah, it was the
presenter
that we were seeing.
Sorry, buddy. First timer here. All right, is that working now, Ev?
No, I can just see you.
No, that's not good. That's no good.
Do you want me to pull up the show that you sent?
I should be able to do it here. I'm not sure why. Yeah, Ev, maybe if you can pop it up there and I can just walk through it.
Oh, sure. You're sharing now.
Oh, I got her there.
Oh no, yeah. You go. Yeah. You went to presenter view again though.
Ah, tough.
Try play from
Who
start.
knows? Let's just go
Yeah,
from
there.
here.
Perfect.
Yeah. No notes. Let's let it fly here. So yeah, sorry. 2021. We're gonna focus on a few things. Obviously, as packaged product is here to stay now, is going to become more common, and people are going to expect it. So first thing I want to highlight is just creative flexibility, ensuring that, as Evan mentioned, your supplier is appropriate for your needs, for your abilities to produce packaged product. After that, optimizing inventory, as Evan mentioned, being able to have just what you need when you need it. We hate to hear about stories of decorated cans going to waste, getting dented in storage, stuff like that. So ensuring that that inventory is dialed, as Evan mentioned, forecasting as accurately as possible can help to ensure, again, that you're getting the packaged product into the hands of your customers. And then just streamlining the whole process of concept to can. I think we kind of cover this in this presentation as a whole, but going from design to production to application to eventually filling, making that as easy as possible, because obviously we need to get product out to the market, and we want to do that as effectively as we can. So I haven't touched on it quickly there, but there's obviously two kinds of print production, digital and flexographic. Digital does not require printing plates. There are usually lower minimums, which actually results in a higher cost per label. Flexographic printing plates are required there, and then you do end up getting a lower cost per label at those higher volumes. Labels and shrink sleeves, Evan, again, he laid the groundwork here for me, but labels, pressure sensitive labels, again, more common to, or more likely you can apply those in-house, or use a co-packer applicator to do so pre or post fill. Also shrink sleeves, 360 degrees of brand real estate there. And again, a flexible, kind of a scalable option as well there too. So I'll get into just some cool photos of cans here, and some of the cool substrates and techniques available to the market right now. First off, being a metallic BOP. A BOP is the standard plastic material that you see on a lot of craft pressure sensitive labels these days, but you can use things like metallic BOP here, where we use white ink to highlight the metallic undertones of the material, and give it a shine like that. So same thing here with Boombox's Secret Galaxy, one of my favorite labels, using a holographic BOP. So again, light refraction to the nth degree. And holographic is just, it adds a level of depth and prestige. It's funny, if you ever in the toothpaste section of your local grocery store, check out how much holographic is there. It's pretty funny to notice that. Peelbacks are just a really high degree of customer interaction. You can encourage, people are generally peeling their beer labels, but why not give them something to take home with them? So it's a multi-layered label. As you can see, this was a specialty for Canada Day, where they could peel off the Canadian maple leaf. This customer here had a fully removable crossword on their label that, again, something to do while you're sitting enjoying a beer in the tasting room. Spot gloss is just an effective use of both gloss and matte finishes, and kind of allows your design to visually guide your consumer to important details. So just, again, effective use of finishing techniques there. High build UV is really cool. It's provides a tactile aesthetic, kind of a 3D experience. Again, Boombox using it effectively here on just the hits, a vinyl type record. So it was actually the ridges of the vinyl record there displayed using that tactile UV. variable content, really cool technology where we can adjust elements of your design consecutively on a roll. So you can apply, well, these labels would be applied in succession, but there's different designs on each of them. Kind of creates a collect them all mentality, again, increasing customer interaction that way. Mosaic technology, you can highlight certain elements of your design to be changed, again, consecutively on a roll. So you're not doing 2,000 different designs, you're just doing one master file that then again, the digital technology can adjust for and really, again, collect them all. One of my personal favorites is Strange Fellows Mr. Hip from a couple of years back. That yogi is iconic here in craft beer in BC, I think. So last but not least, custom die cuts. Again, great way to get brand recognition, and especially if you're using that same die cut across multiple SKUs, can be a great way to get consistency. And again, it's something different from the standard rectangle label, and again, something that can be applied to multiple brands at a time. So last but not least, just want to encourage everyone to take their suppliers to task and encourage them to push their boundaries and take things to the next level. Enhance your brand and really stand out amongst a very competitive marketplace. So it's quick for me, and thank you again. My apologies for my technological difficulties there, and I'll just stop sharing.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Matt. Really appreciate that. We got the longer version of that presentation, and but I think Matt hit the big talking points there. So I really appreciate that. I'll hand it over to Jack, and just before Jack starts his presentation, just please keep putting in your questions in the chat. I will try to kind of pick some of the more relevant ones to the panel. Anything that's kind of specific to a supplier might take offline, and just stick to kind of the general that'll apply across the board. So turn it over to Jack. Jack will, hopefully about 10 minutes, and then we'll have about 10 minutes or so for questions.
Awesome. Thanks, Evan. You guys can see that. All good? All good. Awesome. Yeah, some great stuff there, Matt. Absolutely loving all those different die cuts and the holographic bops. There's some seriously amazing stuff you can do. So thanks for showing all that stuff. Hello, as Evan mentioned, I'm Jack, creative director of Skeleton Crew Creative Studio. We're a fairly small design studio that have been working with Vessel for the last couple of years, and most recently Summit in the last 6 months to pump out some can labels, some other kind of packaging products and designs. And I am going to talk you through a little bit about can labels, about how to potentially stand out in a sea of design and color and holographic bop labels. So this is a battle that I'm sure everyone's well aware of. Everyone that Zooms come to this at some point. Some of you poor buggers might be in it right now, which is fight for the fridge. With hundreds of different design cans sitting in the fridge, and more coming every week, and these new innovations. How the hell do you stand out and create something that is original to you, an authentic idea that really tells your story of your brewery and your brand? Who knows? Is the answer. The process definitely isn't linear. It's a bit of it can be an emotional roller coaster. But I've just put together a few points of how we help our clients get closer to something that's original to them and tells their story, almost to help themselves get closer to a brief, so then they can brief a designer and basically give a designer more tools to create something really cool. And I've kind of broken it down into two parts. The first part is a little bit more philosophical, and there's a little bit more soul searching and inward looking to do. And if you are a founder of a brewery or super close to the project, it is sometimes quite difficult to do. But you've got to look in and ask yourself, what does your brewery stand for? what is your point of difference? Is it the process? Is it your outlook? Is it, your family history, the location you're in? Is it a secret ingredient? What is it that makes your brewery or your beer different that isn't just good beer? Because, ideally, in an ideal world, every single brewery is out there to make good beer. But how do you go that one step further and get your hook and your point of difference? And that's kind of the airy-fairy thinking that is quite difficult to do, as I mentioned. The other side of it, some of the practical things you can do, which might seem a little bit rudimentary, but it's amazing how often they get overlooked. And often it's the simplest things that give us the answer that we're looking for. First one, top of the list, is speak to people, speak to real people. Talk to your regular customers, talk to other breweries and other head brewers, talk to your staff and ask them how they think your brewery or your brand is projected onto them. Like I say, you have a whole, back history of how the brewery was started, where it's heading, where, what your vision for it is. But the most important thing is how is it reflected outwards at the minute. So that's a real key. You often find the answer comes out of just a 5-minute conversation on the phone. Speak to anyone that'll listen to you. Second point, which is a really good one that we do a lot, is go down to the liquor store and buy a beer. Pick a beer in your category, it doesn't matter. And you basically go home, drink it, and think to yourself, why did I pick that beer? What stood out about that beer and made me pick it? We did a bunch of research last year where we went down to a bunch of liquor stores and we interviewed the liquor store owners and just asked them questions, what's working at the minute? What's trending? What is, are there any design problems that need solved right now? And once you get those guys talking, it's almost impossible to shut them up. But that's what you're there for. We actually had a great case study from a liquor store in downtown, and he gave us a case study which was 2 lagers. One where the branding was at the top and most of the important information was in the top half of the can. The second can had more of the important information down below, like in the bottom, like a couple of inches of the can. And he said, which is a super, an overlooked point, certainly. The little black bar that sits in the fridge that stops the beers from falling out when you open the door covered up most of the important information on the second can. And he said, so the first lager was selling out and the other one had hardly been touched, just purely down to a small communication error, which was, a sorry story, but something to watch out for. So when you go down and talk to these liquor store owners, there's, once you put all of these little pieces together, they go such a long way. And lastly, the longevity and the legs of the big idea. It doesn't matter whether the idea is fully developed or it's not completely at the end visual stage. Can you see it going further than a single can design? Is it a one-off or is it a series? Does it have a format and a hierarchy to be able to cover a core series, a seasonal, a collab? And if you want to create multiple cans, is it illustration led and do you need to do an illustration each time, or is it more vector graphic, boxy, so you can just switch out colors, or is it type led so you can change the typography or the size of shapes? Can it come off of the can label and feature within the brewery on signage, on posters, on sell sheets, social? How far can that idea go? Basically, that's the question you want to be asking. And I've just put together a couple of case studies of projects that we worked on recently to kind of make sense of some of that thinking. This first one is for a brewery called Studio Brewing, which is one of our most recent projects. And after doing all of that thinking and all of the experimentation and asking hard questions, a big part of the brief for us was, how do we take the edgy Vancouver brewery scene out to the suburbs of Burnaby and make it accessible to all? So Studio are setting up in Burnaby, which is slightly different to the cool, edgy Main Street or edgy breweries from downtown. They wanted to give people a taste of that, but also wanted to be accessible and personable. And, they didn't want to alienate anyone. When you go down to Burnaby, lots of different backgrounds, lots of different ethnicities, different ages, a real mixed bag of people. So we wanted to consider all angles and make sure studio were a solid part of the community. And this is where we ended up, something that was bright and airy and friendly. We developed this illustration style that really, said, come in. We're an edgy brewery, but we're also personable, and we're open to all. We use different colors in this kind of friendly illustration style. We're quite playful with the typography. And each one had a kind of little visual pun in. Daisy Chain is a street that the brewery's next to, for example, or Rolodex, you can see the little American pale ale folders there. And this then translated off of the can into the brewery. So we used it for menus, for signage, for social, for the website. It covered a lot of ground, so had a massive bang for its buck, so to speak. Second case study is for a brand called Half Beer Radler that we worked on last year, and this is probably more down to the practical stuff that we learned in the liquor store. A big part of the brief here was, how do we launch a light Radler, light alcohol and light calorie content without looking like a grapefruit DIPA? And we got to this brief because we went into the liquor store and looked at a bunch of the Radlers that were existing, and they actually looked very similar visually to some of the really heavy fruity IPAs and the double IPAs, whereas we wanted to be on the lighter end of the spectrum. So we had to look a little bit further. At the other end of the spectrum, we've got nude and neutral, which are super light, kind of a little bit on the taste less side. So we wanted to set ourselves in the middle there and still take advantage of the, this nude and neutral audience, which is kind of hockey bros coming in and crushing a bunch rather than drinking Bud Light. And we also wanted to attract some of the heavy IPA drinkers that might just want a light Radler in between 3 beers. And so we ended up with this kind of halfway house. We have the fruit stickers and a bit of color, which is borrowed from the fruitier end of the spectrum, and then we have the white base, which is taken from the neutral end of the spectrum. Bringing these together got us into a nice halfway house. And this is a seasonal product as well. So it wanted to it's going to be drank in the summer, so we wanted to make people think, I'm going to grab a couple of these and take them down to the beach. It's all super light, super airy, very sunny. And again, the idea, when we're talking about has the idea got legs, this one did, because it was able to spread across social media, on the website. We were able to create sell sheets to sell it into liquor stores. So when we make a sell sheet pack or a sales pack to take into the liquor store, you want to be able to get the idea of Half Beer straight away. What does that brewery stand for? What does the drink stand for? It's a very clear vision, and I get it, which makes it more viable. How is it different to everything else is what we keep asking. And then a final case study, which is probably more on the philosophical side and the kind of inward looking side. This was a small startup brewery called Bricklayer Brewing, who've just opened in Chilliwack. And a big part of this brief was, how do we tell the story of Italian family heritage, and what does that mean in terms of community? So the founders have Italian heritage, and that meant that they wanted to bring some of that spirit into the brewery and into the brand. And a lot of that Italian kind of family dining spirit is relates very well to a brewery. You got everyone coming in, sitting around a table, having a chat, having a drink. They wanted a little bit of that vibe in their can designs and in their branding. So we came up with various concepts and landed on this one, which was to take inspiration from shop fronts and storefronts and little caps from Europe and Italy, and try and translate a little bit of that warm feeling and bring it into the brand. So you can see up front here, some of the more brandy side. We took the shapes from those storefronts and some of the old typography and the primary colors and put them together and modernized it a little bit. So you can see the Italian roots coming through here. And then this is how it kind of translated onto the can. Taking those kind of storefront shapes and the typography and putting that all together. This is probably quite a good example of a practical point, which is this can be easily changed to suit a different beer or a different series. You know, you could easily knock 4 of these out quite quickly at a low cost for a Pilsner series or a lager series, for example. So that was really fun as well. But yeah, I think that's enough from me. Hopefully some of that made sense and you took away some small nuggets and some small insights. But yeah.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Jack. Really great talk. And I think both of you guys, it really adds some color and flavor into, the getting your beer on the shelf and how to make it stand out. So I think, my takeaway from this is, definitely there's, from the vessel perspective, I mean, we work very closely with Summit, very closely with Skeleton Crew as well, but at the same time, it's not, Skeleton Crew will work with other can suppliers and label printers. Summit will work with other can suppliers and designers, and we work with other printers and designers. So really just finding the best fit for you with partners. And I think no matter who you go to first, it's a pretty small community, and find somebody you trust and definitely help let us help you build your brand in the way that makes the most sense. So chat's open for questions. I'll go through some of them and just direct them to I guess myself and Matt and Jack. First question I have here is regarding storage of cans. So what are the consequences of storing cans for a long period of time, and why that 6-month window? So that actually there's a couple pieces to that. On one side, there's the can liner. So every aluminum beverage can has an inert polymer liner in it so that the beverage never comes in contact with the can. The liners are rated for up to a year. Beyond that, they may or may not be okay. We've had cans that have been 2 years old and tested and came back fine. I've never really seen a can degrade, but the can manufacturer won't take any sort of responsibility for that liner after a year. The other issues with storing cans for a long time, first off, it's capital cost. The cost, you're buying cans up front and then storing them for a long time, where that working capital could be helping you otherwise. And also the risk of damage to the cans. The longer they're stored, the more they're moved around, dust builds up, they get dented when you move them around. And the second a can gets dented, you can't just pop out that dent because it damages the liner. So really better to not store them as much as possible. So I hope that answers that question. Let's see, get one for I don't want to take all the questions, but this is a good one for Jack here. How much influence does Instagram social media use influence label design? When taking pictures for the gram, you can only really show a third of the can, which limits storytelling.
Very true, very true. I guess that is kind of how experimental you want to get with Instagram. You got options like the carousel where you could flick around a bunch of designs, or I guess you could start taking short video content. But I think with a lot of can designs, a lot of feedback we've been getting on can designs is that we want an interesting design on the back and the front. So for example, with that half beer, we had fruit stickers all the way around the can. So it doesn't matter which way you shoot it, it should still be interesting. And also another point too, when it comes down the chute in the liquor store, it's also interesting to see. So that point kind of covers both, I guess. How much influence does Instagram, social media use influence label design? I guess it's, to me, it'd be the other way around.
Awesome. So really just making sure you have that 360 so that no matter how the can is looked at or displayed, it really shows off the
ideally
the design.
Yeah, if you can,
yeah, perfect. So Warren asked a question for Maddie actually. So for those of you who aren't aware, Summit offers a bi-weekly program where standard sizes, standard templates are printed on a regular schedule. So the elements you're talking about, such as the high build, the confetti lamp, or the holographic BOP, can you get those elements on the weekly prints, or are the weekly prints only standard labels and then you have to special order the embellishments?
Yeah, no, thanks, Evan. So that's our For the Love of Beer production program, as you mentioned, running weekly here. And we are able to offer metallic BOP in that program, but the other embellishments are going to have to run outside of that program. Obviously, just with setup costs and production processes needed, we can't group run them with our standard craft beer label offerings. So.
Awesome. Thanks, Matt. Okay. Couple other questions I saw that came across here. One was on can carriers and environmental impacts there. Are there alternatives to single-use plastic? So, Vessel, we've moved away from the single-use, the true single-use plastics to PakTech carriers. They have their own environmental impact. They're not considered single use, especially the new design. The easy open don't break as easily, so they can be reused and they can be recycled fairly easily. There are definitely suppliers producing other more environmentally friendly options like paper. I've seen spent grain ones. One of our local printers in Vancouver, Glenmore, is coming out with a paperboard one. But there are definitely advantages and disadvantages to each. The non-plastic ones will often be significantly more expensive than the plastic ones. They might require application equipment. So there's definitely a trade-off on the environmental side versus the cost and application side. Keeping on the environmental train, question on what developments do we see in labeling and environmentalism and moving away from plastic? So by far and away, printed cans are the most sustainable option, mainly in the sense that they add the least amount of weight and material to a decorated can. Shrink sleeves, I'd say, would be the second best option, and then PSLs after that. PSLs, even though they cover less of the can, there's actually more plastic involved because there's a backing, there's also an adhesive, and they also weigh more when applied. There are digital print technologies for cans available. They're not cheap. They're not perfect. It's something that Vessel has stayed away with. There are companies in the States and Quebec that have started offering this. But cost-wise, it's still going to be significantly more than a shrink-sleeved can. So it's something that we're keeping an eye on. It's something we'd love to work on. I don't know, Matt, can you speak to any new label substrates that are coming out that might be more environmentally friendly than plastics?
Yeah, no, Evan, it's sustainability is a big topic of discussion in the printing industry, obviously, as it should be. So, like you said, there are some cool innovations out there. Spent grain, stone paper. It's a growing and expanding sector, and it's something that we should focus on. That being said, it's not fast moving, and someone really needs to push the envelope on it. So not sure where that comes from, but it is a topic that everyone is well aware of, and there's going to be an increased focus on it moving forward.
Yep. From a regulatory side, as far as I'm aware, there are no jurisdictions outside of Quebec that are really mandating the use of non-plastic labels or mandating people not to use plastic labels. I would imagine that the container recycling boards, province by province, if they decide to move in that direction, would need to give a pretty substantial grace period and consultation on that, because frankly it would cripple our industry if that happened. And by our industry, I mean the craft beverage industry. There are no real solid alternatives to plastic labels as of right now. Once the technology is there that we can move off of it, all of us, be it can decorators, label printers, designers, we want to embrace those technologies. And when they come, we'll definitely be all in on those. One last question. Notice craft breweries are using solid color printed cans, and then labeling over them. Is this, how is this done? So I can take this, and I mean, Jack can talk a little bit about the advantage using a kind of a solid printed can and then labeling over. Basically, it's to order those, it's the exact same as a full design printed can. So when Vessel needs to call up Crown and say, we want to order a full truckload of a solid white or solid black can, the issue here is that, we stock 355 mil silver bullets, 473 mil silver bullets, 250 mil silver bullets, 355 sleek silver bullets. If we now have to add all of those SKUs in solid white, solid black, other colors, it's too much complexity for a distributor like us to handle. We definitely have breweries that will do a solid printed can, or even a branded can with printing on the neck and then label over them. But at least through Vessel, it is the same as a printed can, where you do have to buy a full truckload of that can, but then it can absolutely be labeled over. We're kind of running out of time here, but Jack, anything to add here in terms of the advantages of a white or black can as opposed to a silver can? Oh, sorry, Jack, you're still on mute.
Good spot. No, that was really good, Evan. Definitely agree with all that. I guess it's whatever the idea demands. If you are a craft, if you can craft wine, ideally you want a PSL with a silver can so it looks more organic. Whereas I guess if you looking at something more funky, a full printed can to enhance the idea and make it stand off would be a great shot if it's worth the investment for sure.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much, Jack, and again, thank you and Maddie. Really appreciated what you guys brought to the table. Thanks everyone for attending. I hope you learned something. And if you have any other questions for any of us, we'll throw our contact info into the chat. Feel free to reach out, and we're more than happy to provide that info. And I'll turn it over to Nancy.
Thank you, Evan and Matt and Jack, for a great presentation demonstrating the creativity and the passion and the possibilities that are out there for packaging all those great beers everybody is making. And at this point, I would like to thank, and I don't even know the names because there's all these amazing people behind the screen that's making all this happen. And we all are here because of them. We can thank you, Ken, and you can go around and thank everybody else that has brought us together here. It's been was truly astounding to me, who's a technology failure, to have all this work. So we're going to close off here, have yourself a beer, and then come back tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. There'll be a keynote speaker, Assistant Deputy Minister of Tourism, Salman Assam, is going to be speaking to us, followed by more technical brewing presentations. And in the meantime, get yourself connected on the online community and keep up the conversations. See you tomorrow morning.